We start with the interview of today. Our topic today is SME policy in the European Union. It was already before very important. The SMEs are the power cells of the economy. But now the COVID crisis-19 shows also that they are flexible, but also under pressure. So, and we want to discuss today with Marcin Nowacki, President of the European Enterprise Alliance and Vice President of the Union of Entrepreneurs and Employees of Poland, and with Dr. Paul Rübig, President of SME Connect, and for 24 years, member of the European Parliament. What are the main topics we have? What are the main duties? What are the main targets for a successful SME policy who is benefits to the internal market, benefits to the member states, but also benefits in a global competition? And we start directly with Marcin Nowacki. Please, the floor is yours. Perhaps you say some words to you about, and what are your 3 points you want to highlight in these discussions? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, Horst. Hello, Paul. It's great to talk to you today. First of all, I think we need to tackle or challenge the situation and narrative we have with lots of protectionism going on, and I think the belief that the state intervention and the state or large institutions can be stronger than regular economy, and to some extent we can observe how large companies or the states themselves are limiting our freedoms, and this, if that's going to be accepted for the long run, it can have lots of consequences for the economy and the market we have within Europe. So first of all, I would differentiate that there is, and I can observe that also in Poland, in other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, that there is a call for protectionism. This is happening, and we must remember that everything we have today in Europe, the growth, the wealth we have, also in CE countries, in Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Estonia, Lithuania. This is because of our open borders. This is because of the single market we are benefiting, and that should be the core for the growth in terms of the SMEs. And I would rather ask for the call to open more, to open services within Europe, and perhaps we should revise the service directive, as to some extent, or from my opinion personally, it rather does not work so far. So we should rather think of opening more our economy, opening services across the EU market, and we need to address the protectionism which is happening, because, as I said, we can observe that very well in our region, in Poland, in Eastern Europe, that being a part of a large market is with the benefit for our companies, and mostly for small, medium-sized companies that can easily export, that can easily move with operations to other markets. So that is probably critical perspective that I have right now. I would also, as a second point, think of either a delay or perhaps a redefinition of the Green Deal and other green policies we have now in Europe. I think we need to focus on the growth and the wealth of our citizens. And as of course, I understand the perspective and the importance of green policies, but these are also expensive policies to some extent, and for many sectors, they might be too expensive. So I would redefine this agenda. I know it is happening. I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago with Commissioner Dombrovskis, and he underlined that this is still the ongoing process, and this is not gonna change. I hope it will change to some extent. It will be limited, or it will be delayed, because there are a number of sectors. Also, some of production facilities are struggling, and we need to focus on real growth and how to finance potentially in the future our green policies, green economy, sustainable growth. But without proper growth and strong economy, strong companies within the EU, we won't be. We even won't be able to sustain the green policies we've had so far. So this is a second call I would have to decision makers. And the third, in general, is to have less politics and more discussion about real economy and real problems, because still politics is I mean, for years it's been at the center, but today we need to leave politics and really focus on the situation we are facing. There are companies without any market now. They are cut off the market. This is something we don't know for decades, and we need to focus on the growth, not on the politics. Also, it refers to the EU institutions, in my understanding, that there should be less politics and more just day-to-day work and operations with regards to the economy and the wealth of European citizens.
Thank you very much for your statement. I think it's very interesting that you started not to say we have to protect, we have to help the SMEs. You say first, a danger is there that we coming back to protectionism and destroying the internal market. This is one of the fears. I think this is that we with our help, we try to help them. We are doing exactly the opposition of this. So I think the second thing is to rethink the Green Deal. What is the impact really for all for the SMEs? Is this the right time now for it? And I think what is also very interesting, I think also your approach to say, become, I would translate it, more pragmatic and with economical wisdom than ideologic political solutions. I think if I can summarize this.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Paul, I think Marcin says points you would agree. I know you were always in your political path, and also today as president of SME Connect, a fighter for competition, fair competition, and also for free markets. How are you analyzing now the situation? What are your 3 points you would say are necessary to do or to think about now? Please.
Yes, first of all, many thanks to Marcin. We are good friends and we know how important it is to fight for SMEs. And of course, with Horst Heitz, we have somebody who knows how to support and gives a right framework. And therefore, on Brussels level, it's very clear that not everybody enjoys free market competition and ownership. We have a lot of people who are in deep socialism and with communistic approach. So therefore, we have to ask the people, do you like to have poverty for everybody, it's decreasing income, and the people who work are not treated in the right way? Or do you want to have wealth? And of course, for wealth, you have to work, you have to risk capital, you need risk capital, you need well-educated people. So the framework for a successful European Union in competition with China and with United States and others, it's clear that only through work and through very good income, we can make people looking positively into the future. And in former times, I always was very much fighting for privatization. Still, I'm doing, but the truth is we have to fight for competition. So also competition between state-owned entities, that's essential for giving a good deal for the consumers, because if consumers get a good deal, anyway, companies will benefit, and the one who has the best solutions will be successful. So the big question is, how can we support the local business? We all know we have approximately 25 million SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses in Europe. They produce 50% of the GDP. They are very badly hit now through Corona crisis, and the shutdown was a nightmare for all of them. And now, of course, they need liquidity. They need to invest all the money which they have saved up till now. A lot of them will get bankrupt, and therefore we should ring the bell for the SMEs, not only on Brussels level. I think it's a global issue that if we don't start to change the rules on the global level, and I think WTO would be the first place to ring the bell, because trade facilitation, competition policy, investment protection would be key elements of enabling SMEs to be active in export and import. You know, with export, you can create new jobs. With new jobs, you can pay very good wage. So the buying power of the people who get a job also through export is growing. And through import, the consumers can buy maybe cheaper, maybe in a better quality, and they are increasing buying power a second time. So for the wealth of nations, you would need a worldwide functioning trade system. And I think WTO would be the base for have a rule-based, sustainable trade framework. If I'm sure that not everything can be done in WTO, so we would need the bilateral trade agreements. European Union has made a very good success story with bilateral trade agreements. We see that like South Korea, we had 30% plus on both sides, and that saves and creates a lot of new jobs in SMEs. And SMEs are the most important part in the value chain, in the global value chain. And I think export and import is a base of the infrastructure which we need in future time. And Marcin, also thank you so much for remembering us on the Green Deal, because in the Green Deal, we should look on the targets which we have on the global level, the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have found 3 targets which are quite important. It's number 2. It's the most important thing in the world is to have food and feed and nutrition. And that you only can get if you have clean water. It's target number 6. Clean water, sanitation, sewage treatment, cascadic use of water. And number 7, it's renewable energy. And in all these fields, SMEs could be the champions. And I think we should be heavily engaged in the agricultural field, especially with young farmers who run their own equity who run as entrepreneurs, who are looking into the front of this huge market of feeding the world. We have now 7 billion people on this world. Hopefully in 2030, we have 10 billion people. So how can we produce the food and feed and organize wealth on the globe? And of course, we have to take care on the globe, but never forget that all business is local and that we should stay behind our small and medium-sized companies. And as you know, ECOSOC, and I would be very, very happy if you could get a seat in ECOSOC, because there also legislative agreements between employers and employees are possible. And so the ECOSOC has a right of initiative. And I think you should start a lot of initiatives in the ECOSOC for a legal base in the Green Deal, to have return on investment, to use taxpayers' money for increasing the global standards.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good that it's also mentioned you both running for the European Economic and Social Committee. It's very interesting and not so well-known committee, but important, like you say, to have this balance between employees and employers. But one thing I would come a little bit back to Marcin. We discuss also to your points. We're discussing now the framework to be avoiding protectionism and so on. What is now at the moment? SMEs are struggling to survive. Is this the right point now to think ahead, to say we have to think now the new framework, or to avoiding that we're going the wrong direction? Is it not more about now to say what we can do now to that the SMEs can survive now? Marcin, what is your approach there?
I mean, first of all, SMEs should be allowed to be back in doing their business. That's critical point. I mean, we can offer EU funds, liquidity funds that are at state or at member states level, but it's nothing if we won't let them reopen the businesses. So this is number one. Some businesses, most of them will be able to survive as long as they can stay open, they can be open, and again they can fight for the market and their clients. And unfortunately, in many countries so far in the EU, we still have lockdowns for specific sectors. And this is, I mean, unbelievable harm we are just providing to these sectors. So this is number one, to reopen the economy. We have published here in Poland number of good practices. We have, together with our businesses, with SMEs, we have published number of good practices for specific sectors, how to reopen their sectors, including hotels, restaurants, hairdressers, shopping malls, and so on. So businesses, and I'm pretty, I'm sure that knowing SMEs now, they are ready to reopen safely. I mean, they know what to do to limit any risk for the employees and clients, and I'm safe here to say that businesses are ready to reopen right now here in Poland, and they specifically analyze what should be done in order to provide the best service or product for the clients. So this is number one. Number two is the banking sector and the access to finance. I know that was the address of number of countries. within the European Union, how to provide easy liquidity loans to businesses, to SMEs, and I know also the process. I was observing and following the process of accepting all these programs by the European Commission. It needs to work, it needs to be active in order to sustain businesses. But again, liquidity loans are beneficial as long as economies are open. I mean, without reopening, this is basically burning money.
Mm-hmm.
If there is no perspective to with a specific date to open the economy, it's very dangerous for the public finances to just provide the money. So it needs to be correlated. The liquidity funds, the banking sector, and its readiness to finance must be connected with the whole strategy to reopen the economy and specific dates of reopening specific sectors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I see that like you say, the first thing is bring the business to run again, and then this state aid can be only a short-time solution, like morphine, but it's not cure the disease. But I want to go to Paul back. Now we see there are perhaps two options who could happening now with this development. One way would be this protectionism, this state aid, that you are addicting to this. But in the other way, it could be also a chance to complete the internal market, to fight bureaucracy, to believe in the entrepreneur spirit. In which direction the European Union is going at the moment? What you are believing? More state aid, that it's more tendency to be the believing in the government can solve every problem, or it's more now unleash the economic power of Europe?
Yes, the key question is, do we go back to a centralized, governed communistic system with poverty for everybody? Or do we want to stay in a market economy where if you work and if you are busy and if you take risk, where you can have success? So, the real problem which we have at present is that the state, the government organized a lockdown from the one side, and SMEs, of course, had to do what lawmakers decided. But I think if there is a lockdown done by government, also SMEs had to do the lockdown. So why not SMEs should have a lockdown on tax payments in the time where they have no business through government decisions? There should be a deletion of any tax payment within this period. And the second is that wages which they have to pay have also to be paid from government, because the truth is, why should SMEs take the burden of the lockdown? I think we have to share the problems, and if the decision is done by the government, also the government has to take the financial consequences. So therefore, fighting to get SMEs not to have spent money which they never have earned, or if they have earned money, that they have to invest this equity for government decisions. I think that's totally unfair. So one of my suggestions is that within the ECOSOC, we should create a so-called SME media hub. We have to debate within the ECOSOC to have clear messages from the SME side. You know that we have at least 4 pillars where we can support consumers and SMEs. One is building infrastructure. So how can we support the 5G and fiber deployment within European Union to have a really digital single market without any kind of roaming? And how can we support research and innovation? We should double the Horizon Europe program from 80 to 160 billion, because in worldwide competition, we only will survive with good and better products. We have to be very careful on the education system. How can we create competition within the education system? And how can we support vocational training programs for getting better knowledge in the companies? And I come back again to the real question of distribution of taxation. We have as an example, and also left very angry about Hungary. But the truth is Hungary has lowered the corporate tax to 9%. So the competition in the tax area is very crucial for SMEs, because if we put the money away from the one who work and take the risk and do all the necessary future-oriented investments and put it to the one who are sitting at home and doing nothing, and that the government employ more and more people, and bureaucratic burdens are exploding, and SMEs get more and more problems with justice and tax control, and more people are checking what they are doing than the one who are really working. So it's a level between production and services with bureaucratic structures. I think what we need also to support is better regulation and kicking out of regulations which are burdensome and which have not real effect to consumers' benefits.
Yeah, then, like I understand you, I think this would be also a solution, a midterm solution to lower taxes, because if you have business, you pay less, and if you have no business, yes, this is not taxpayers' money what is spent to a business who was never running. In fact, the so-called zombie enterprises were only surviving through Corona money. So this is the other problematic we have. But if you're coming to taxes, Marcin, before we had the discussion about a lot of taxation before the Corona crisis: digital tax, meat tax, sugar tax, carbon tax. Do you think the discussion is over, or it's now, are we going this direction like Paul said, the taxes are going down, or it's coming now the more this movement, these taxes we need exactly now to change our industry in a better way, to have money to support SMEs? What is your feeling here?
I'm afraid both narratives will be present. For sure, there are bureaucrats and some politicians that like sectoral taxes. I strongly oppose sectoral taxes. It's lots of harm for businesses, and all the taxes you mentioned should be out of the agenda right now. From my perspective, it should not happen. We should we might think of for example, flat VAT across the EU. That would help a lot with the black market, with the VAT black market, which is happening across member states. And that should help our customers, our citizens. But definitely sectoral taxes, sugar tax, digital tax, we should take them out of the European agenda right now. What I see as a chance for European economy and for our SMEs is digitalization, definitely. This is really happening right now with the Corona crisis. We can see how businesses change, how to some extent, administration has changed as well. In Poland, for example, now we can easily get the medical advice remotely, fully via internet. We can get the medical advice via internet, and we can get the medical prescription also online as a digital prescription. It goes directly to the pharmacy, and we go to the pharmacy to get our drug, our medicine. And the first thing that the medical advice, the online medical advice, was done thanks to thanks of course to the Corona crisis. The lobby of traditional doctors did not have any more power to block this kind of deregulation and opening of the market. And the same if we look at the education. Of course, we were late with public schools to start online lessons, but finally, after a couple of weeks, roughly about 2 weeks ago, they started. Even public schools, regular public schools, I would say old school institutions, started to run online classes, and this is happening on the daily basis. So I see lots of chances with digitalization, with online presence of SMEs. We use webinars to present the good practices of SMEs, how they go online and start sometimes new businesses thanks to the internet. And I agree that we should look at the EU, and perhaps again we should redefine EU financial framework in terms of what used to be a focus, the focus of the EU, the fiber infrastructure, telecom infrastructure. Perhaps we should look at that and use or redefine our budget in order to put more money on that infrastructure, because we see that without the traditional fiber infrastructure, in many ways, there will be regions in Europe that are just left without any access and stable access to the internet, to what is happening now, to the new public services we can see and we can use via internet. So definitely this is that was unexpected, what we are now having and what we have experienced, but we should use it as much as possible to gain the growth for our businesses. And small businesses are the first to really to grasp this chance to somehow find the presence within this new market or larger market. Definitely, this is much larger market on both ends of supply as well as customers.
Thank you. I think there are very good aspects here, because if you also see this crisis also as a chance to make the digital transition, to invest in necessary infrastructure, what we all was lacking behind. We were also before in a global competition. Perhaps this is also the time that we're using our taxpayers' money in a better way. Could it be a chance that we are now thinking we cannot use the money for everything we need, that now there is also a kickback for our economy? How do you think that the politicians becoming more clever to use the money, that they are not that they have, because of this pressure to think where we get an outcome out of these investments? Are you thinking they're becoming this entrepreneurial spirits in the parliament?
You know, at least in the Commission, I think Commissioner Dombrovski, he was twice elected as Prime Minister, where he did really serious cuts, which were necessary, because if you can't work, you can't distribute, and you can't pay tax. So the bureaucratic sector has also to accept that cuts have to come. And also the employment in the public sector has to be decreased. Otherwise, we can't afford the long run. I also remember as Slovakia came out of the communistic times, that Prime Minister Dzurinda really made a totally new approach on a very high level of impact to the wealth of the people of Slovakia. So the truth is, we have now to go through a very intensive phase of reconstructing how we can get a successful, sustainable future for our young people. And that has to have the priority. I think that the European Commission has to come up also with studies on the public sector, how to make the overall public sector in the member states more efficient. Up to now, we always had a very aggressive competition from member states to reduce jobs on Brussels level. I remember in the last 5 years, Brussels has decreased every year 1% of the jobs, a decrease of 4% of the money. So I think also in member states, we have to ask for reducing the jobs in the public sector. Otherwise, the wage situation in the public sector will be faced with a real high pressure. Because neither the local communities nor the regional or the national will have the money to pay for the public administration. And so therefore we need also their investment, we need competition between the different levels, we need a new approach in public administration. And the more and more, and I think that's also something where we have to start the debate in the Green Deal. The Green Deal means that we have to reduce public administration. It's very clear that we have an ideological fight on how we can give the best solution to the consumers. And you know, for us in EPP, it's very clear that we are 100% on the side of the consumers, because it's 100% of the people. And what's much more important is that we are 100% behind the taxpayers, because every European citizen is a taxpayer. And socialists and Greens always want to put up taxation, and so decreasing the buying power of the people. Our main job is to increase the buying power of the people and give them also some reserves for if maybe Corona second wave, third wave, or another dangerous virus will come up. We need some private equity for everybody to survive in a time of crisis. And if we don't take care that people can put some money on the side to be responsible in bad times, the next virus could hit us more dramatically, because this coronavirus was a real problem. But if you see how many people die in a normal flu, and with corona, it's not too much difference. But we have a virus where 80% or 90% of the people die if they get the virus. And if we get such a virus like Ebola, then the world will change totally and in a very dramatic way. So we should be prepared for the next wave of virus and other dangerous issues. and if we don't allow preparation, it could be very dangerous for mankind.
Thank you. That means this is a test for us to prepare to the next pandemic who will come up. Yeah. Marcin, if we're coming now to the end, do you think the European Union was, if you're coming back to the entrepreneur spirit, was too bureaucratic, too less believing in the internal market? What are you thinking? What is the reason? We have too less entrepreneurs in the parliament, or why we have these beliefs that we have to regulate everything? What is your ideas about deregulation, please?
I mean, we should go back to the roots of the EU. I mean, EU as a concept, as a set of institutions for many years, and Paul was part of it for many years. If we go back to the 90s or late 90s or 20 years ago, we were really focused on the single market and the opening of specific markets, with a number of policies throughout the last 2-3 years. We could observe the protectionism, the whole mobility package. We still have on the table now the early revision of the Posted Workers Directive. It was all a consequence of the protectionism taking place in specific countries against other countries, against other markets. And I think it's just a weakness. I don't think that wasn't that kind of groups lobbying for protectionism were not present 20 or 25 years ago. They were present as well, but due to the weakness of politicians at the national level, we observed what we observed. The revision of the Posted Workers Directive should not take place. It was just a strong pressure of highly ranked politicians to do so. With the mobility package, we could see basically we can probably grasp 2 or 3 markets which were strongly lobbying for that solution against most of the industry, and some politicians were even doing that against their national industries. So it's just, the question about the strength of politicians and politicians that understand what is the single market about, because I don't think there are politicians at the European level that are against this as a concept, against the single market. But they must understand that if they take out 1, 2, 3 puzzles out of the whole picture, it just won't work anymore. And we cannot simply take the transport sector out of the whole picture made of puzzles, because it's related to the industry and production and to automotive sector in France, for example, that is providing the automotive parts and the new cars. It's all interrelated, and at some level it won't work as we thought it's gonna work. So definitely we need to look and get the responsibility among politicians at domestic and European level. And of course, we need to educate, we need to discuss perhaps again the concept, what the understanding of the single market, why it took place, why it was happening for many years, and somehow throughout last couple of years we are trying not to, we are not seeing that what was the initial concept. But I'm pretty sure that once we discuss it, once we point out what is at the center of the single market, people, the citizens and politicians in the majority will understand that. Perhaps we just take it for granted that we have single market and it's gonna stay with us. And then we can lobby with sectors, with specific groups for our side. I mean, it's not gonna work this way, unfortunately.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I summarize it short because we are now to the end of this very interesting discussion. I think what I learned here now, it's for SMEs during the crisis, state aid, financial aid, only so long as necessary, so short as possible. Open the markets, put down the measures as soon as possible that they can work and earn money. Use this as a chance to fight protectionism, to complete the single market, coming to innovation, solve the Green Deal through innovation, through our successful SMEs. Don't put new burdens on SMEs, unleash the market, fight new taxes, put the taxes down, lower, and then we have really to believe in the entrepreneurship of our SMEs and of our enterprises in Europe. And then we can really have also a benefit out of this crisis, that we are doing the right reforms and going the right direction through a transition, also digitalization, that we can use this also in a chance to invest in our infrastructure. And then in the end, the consumers are benefiting at the end from this crisis through that we're coming out stronger and better than before. I wish you good luck for running for the European Economic Social Committee. And thank you for this discussion. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.